We're spending just a couple of minutes on stranger than fiction. The word for stranger in Greek is xenos, and you may have heard of xenophobia, the fear of strangers, and that's where we get that word from. It means a foreigner, somebody who's not from here, and we're not talking about Connecticut or New Jersey. We're talking about people who don't belong, they don't fit in. So this word strange, or it can be used in a verb form too, something that appears strange or is strange. It even gets translated a few times as surprised, because something is different. And so we're looking at 5 places in the New Testament, 5 kinds of contexts where this word occurs. And the first one has to do with the condition of sinners. So in Ephesians 2, please look at verse 12. Ephesians 2:12. Remember that you were at that time separate from Christ, excluded from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers to the covenants of promise, having no hope and without God in the world. Paul is telling us what we were and where we were and what kind of people we were. And the word that he uses in the middle of verse 12 is strangers to the covenants of promise. So God had no relationship to us. We had no relationship to God. We were strangers to all of his covenants. He made covenants with the Jewish people, but we had no connection. Gentiles, and apart from the will of God, apart from the love of God, we were foreigners to that. We didn't have any connection to it. And that's what we were before we came to Christ. Now in the same chapter, look at the second kind of place, down in verse 19 of Ephesians 2, and here's what it says. So then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and of God's household. So we've turned the corner at that point, and now we are not strangers anymore. We've been brought in, and we're a part of the family. We're part of the people of God. We belong to him. Different places that you've traveled, that we've traveled. You can think of going to visit another town or another state. Lori and I did a cross-country trip in 2019. We visited a lot of places, visited some churches and so on. And some places is just really weird, really different. I remember some of the things that we saw getting out to the West Coast was tsunami warnings. That's not something you see around here. And then going through some of the passes in the Rockies, avalanche zone, and there was still snow on the peaks, by the way, in early May. Those are not things that we're familiar with here. That's strange. Here, we've been brought in to the family of God, and we're not strangers anymore. We belong to God. We belong to the people of God, the family of God, and so we're now accepted. We're now in fellowship. And that's because of our relationship to Jesus Christ, of course, through faith. And then here's another set of verses that have to do with where we as believers are in relation to the world around us. So go to Acts chapter 17. Acts 17. And this is the record of Paul's sermon in Athens, Mars Hill. And notice a couple of times he uses these phrases are used about him and his teaching. Acts 17, look at verse 18. And also some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers were conversing with him. Some were saying, what would this idle babbler wish to say? Others, he seems to be a proclaimer of strange deities. That word strange. And of course, Paul is talking about Jesus and his resurrection. And the philosophers have never heard anything like this. This is new to them. This is weird, strange. They don't understand what this is. And down in verse 20, for you are bringing some strange things to our ears, so we want to know what these things mean. And to the world around us, when we talk about Jesus Christ, when we talk about his crucifixion, when we talk about his resurrection, when we make that the centerpiece of who we are and what we talk about, the world thinks that's really weird. That's really bizarre. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about other things. your work, your career, your money, your possessions, your status. That's what they're interested in. And when we talk about Jesus Christ and he died and he rose again, that is very strange. That's foreign. That's not part of their conceptual framework. It's a strange idea. Look in 1 Peter chapter 4, still talking about our relationship to the world around us. And in 1 Peter chapter 4, we'll pick it up at verse 1. 1 Peter 4:1. Therefore, since Christ has suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves also with the same purpose, because he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the lust of men, but for the will of God. For the time already past is sufficient for you to have carried out the desire of the Gentiles, having pursued a course of sensuality, lusts, drunkenness, carousing, drinking parties, and abominable idolatries. Verse 4, in all this they are surprised that you do not run with them into the same excesses of dissipation, and they malign you. In verse 4, our word is there, but it doesn't show up as strange or stranger. It shows up as surprised. They think that we're really weird. Why? Because we don't do what they do. They say, hey, there's going to be a great party. We're going to have 5 kegs of beer, and there's going to be a DJ. And, to them, I remember being exposed to this. I went to 2 secular universities, University of Michigan in Dearborn, and in Pennsylvania, Mansfield University. And as the week progressed, more and more of the kids around me would be talking about, what are you doing for the weekend? And it was always, it's going to be a great party. We're going over to the frat house, and there's going to be so much beer. And then on Monday, you'd see the results of it. You'd come in, and this is almost embarrassing. Not only the students, but there's at least one class I was in where the prof was hungover. Staggers in. Looks like he got beat up, slurry, headache, and so on at least one occasion I asked somebody that had been to a party over the weekend, or the whole weekend was a party for all I know. I said, so what'd you do? What was the party like? And he said, I don't know, I don't remember a thing. If I have a good time, I like to remember it. But the world, they don't understand. They think that when we come to church, when we open the Bible, when we sing praises to God, when we pray, when we fellowship together, when we get together as brothers and sisters, and we encourage each other, and say, what did you learn in the Bible? What have you been learning from God? What's he doing in your life? When we do that, they say, you are so weird. You guys are strange. Don't you know how to have fun? I have a lot of fun. I just don't get drunk. And that's where they're at. So they look at us and they say about us, you people are strange. And we ought not allow that to color our view of our own life. We don't have to fit into the world. In fact, if we're fitting in, there's something wrong with us. There's a problem with us. In this same place, 1 Peter 4, look down, please, at verse 12. Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal among you, which comes upon you for your testing, as though some strange thing were happening to you. But to the degree that you share the sufferings of Christ, keep on rejoicing, so that also at the revelation of his glory you may rejoice with exultation. Does anybody see the word strange in those 2 verses? Surprise. Do not be surprised. Don't think it a weird thing when we go through trials. The Christian life has a lot of trials in it. The Christian life has a lot of troubles in it. And part of those are caused by people around us who don't like us and who don't like Jesus Christ. And they actually take a certain kind of glee in trying to make difficulty for us. And so don't be surprised. Don't be shocked that the world doesn't like us and that there's trouble in the Christian life. It's going to happen. And of course, our hope is fixed on the goal at the end. When we're with Jesus, when we get to the end of our course and we go home to be with him, that's where our hope is fastened and fixed. So in this current system, yeah, there's trouble. There's persecution. There's heartache even. But we should not be shocked by that. Another set of context where this word occurs has to do with the companionship of saints, the fellowship of the believers. Romans chapter 16. Romans chapter 16. And in Romans chapter 16, take a look, please, at verse 23. And again, I'm going to quiz you, see if you can figure out where is the word strange or stranger. Verse 23, Romans 16:23. Gaius, host to me and to the whole church, greets you. Erastus, the city treasurer, greets you, and Quartus, the brother. Where in the world is the word strange or stranger? This is a little bit more of a stretch in English. It's actually somebody who likes strangers, somebody who is hospitable. The word host is our word. Why would that have anything to do with strangers?
He opens his house.
Yeah, exactly. He opens the door and says, hey, come on in. And he may or may not know them. In many cases, he doesn't know them, but he's welcoming. He is hospitable. He says, come on in. And what a great Christian virtue this is. Again, I think back to the cross-country trip we did in 2019. We went to a little Baptist church in Cody, Wyoming, and cowboy country. But, they were pretty warm and welcoming. They said, come on in. And a little different style of certain things, but they were very hospitable. In other places, I remember as a boy traveling with my dad cross-country, and he would speak at different churches and conferences, missionaries. One time we were in South Dakota at a Sioux Indian reservation, and Dad had meetings there, and we got welcomed into that church that was made up almost 100% of Sioux Indian believers. And they brought us right in. Come on in. We want to be careful that we have that same quality about us. And I think our church does a good job. We do a pretty good job of welcoming people, being warm and friendly. But this is a virtue that we ought to cultivate in our own lives, to be hospitable, to want to welcome people into our homes, to say, come on in, I want to get to know you. And here, Paul is commending this guy, Gaius, who is a host, a lover of strangers, somebody who is concerned about the well-being of people that he doesn't even know yet. Go to 3 John. 3 John. And in 3 John, please look at verse 5. Beloved, you are acting faithfully in whatever you accomplish for the brethren, and especially when they are strangers. So John is commending the church to whom he's writing, and he's saying, when you get visitors, when you get brethren, that's believers, Christians, who come to you, and you bring them in, and you are warm and hospitable, and you see to their needs, you make them feel at home. When you do that, you're doing a good thing. That is a proper and a God-honoring thing that you're doing. And so there's this companionship of saints. Look at one more, and this has to do with because we're Christians, and this kind of encompasses some of the other things we've already mentioned, but go to Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11, and starting in verse 13. Hebrews 11:13. All these died in faith without receiving the promises, but having seen them and having welcomed them from a distance, and having confessed they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For those who say such things make it clear that they are seeking a country of their own. And indeed, if they had been thinking of that country from which they went out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. So in verse 13, all these people, the Faith Hall of Fame individuals, these individuals, it says they died in faith without receiving the promises, the fulfillment of what God had told them. They saw them from a distance, and they also had this testimony. They confessed that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. What does that mean? We're here, but we don't belong here. This is not our home. This is not where we have settled. Our citizenship, if you will, our home, the place where we're longing to get to, the place where we're going to be accepted, the place of our permanent dwelling, is not here. This earth is a temporary residence. We're passing through, and while we're here, we have a job to do, to be a testimony for Christ, to encourage the saints, to live for God. There's important things we need to do while we're here, but this is not our permanent abode. We're strangers and exiles. We are foreigners and pilgrims here on earth. Now, what are some of the implications, just very quickly, what are some of the practical ramifications of that truth? This would be where you talk.
We made alive by Christ.
Yep. We're alive in Christ.
Strangers.
Yep. And this is because of our relationship to him, for sure.
Yeah.
So,
To God as his family, so we're not a stranger to him.
okay.
We've been moved from the citizenship of this world to that of heaven. Our value systems, our drives, our direction has changed. So those who are still within the world, those who are not saved, will recognize something different about us, and our desire should be knowing that yes, there's a place for investment, yes, there's a place to be a good steward, all of those things, but we're doing it for different reasons. So it's not wrong to make money, it's not wrong to work, it's not wrong to have property or any of those things, but why we do them and the direction and the intention behind it is
Right.
different.
So,
People are going to see that.
we're living for the future. We're living for that which is above. And our heart, remember Jesus said, where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And, you know, if our treasure is all here, if this is it, we're going to be settled, we're going to be looking for stuff, we're going to be looking for possessions, because this is our home. But if this is just our temporary place, we're just passing through, then our heart, our values, our goals are somewhere else, namely heaven. Very good. Any other comments, questions?
People may think we are weird and strange, but at 1 Peter 4:1-4, keep fervent in your love for the Lord.
Yep. So we accept the reality that we will never fit in here on earth. If we fit in with the world, there's a problem. That means that we have succumbed to the pleasures, the value system around us, and we're in trouble. If the world says about us, you people are so weird, take that as a compliment, because it is. It is a compliment. When the world says about you, I just can't figure you out. You were so strange. Okay, that's fine. And that's an opening for us to say, well, here's the reason I'm strange. It's because I'm not settled here on earth. I'm going to heaven. Yep. Anything else? Take your prayer bulletins, please, and look at some things going on things we need to pray